It started like any other day. I clocked in for my shift at the local department store where I worked unloading trucks in the back lot. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. Normally, I'd spend the first hour stacking pallets and preparing for the day's shipments. By 9 a.m., our regular truck drivers would start showing up. I knew most of them by name. Joe, Steve, and Greg were my favorites. They were always polite and even helped unload when we were short-staffed. But that morning, a truck rolled into the lot that I didn't recognize. The truck itself looked like it had seen better days. The cab was battered with rust creeping along the edges of the doors and a mismatched paint job that looked slapped on in a hurry. The driver, an older man wearing a dirty trucker cap pulled low over his face, barely said a word when he handed me the clipboard. His hands were rough and dirty, with long, cracked fingernails. Something about him immediately put me on edge. He avoided eye contact and seemed jittery, constantly glancing over his shoulder. "All right, you're good to go," he mumbled, shoving the clipboard back into my hands. Without another word, he climbed back into the cab and left the engine idling as I started to unload. The first few pallets were standard: clothing boxes, housewares, and some random seasonal items. But halfway through, I noticed a stack of smaller, unlabeled boxes near the back of the truck. They weren't on the manifest, which was odd. I didn't think much of it at first. Mistakes happen all the time. I grabbed one of the boxes to move it and immediately felt something shift inside, like liquid sloshing around. As I lifted it, the bottom corner of the box gave way, and this thick green sludge poured out. It splattered all over my brand new shoes, the ones I just bought last weekend. "Are you kidding me?" I muttered, stepping back in disgust. The slime reeked, like a mix of rotten eggs and burned plastic. I set the box down carefully, wiping my hands on my jeans. The stuff was sticky and left this gross, oily residue that wouldn't come off. I waved over my coworker, Mike, who, "Hey man, check this out. What do you think this is?" Mike wrinkled his nose as soon as he got close. "That smells like death," he said, pulling his hoodie over his mouth and nose. "What's in there?" "No idea. It's not on the manifest," I replied. "And it's not the only weird box back here." Mike shook his head. "Let's just get this over with. The sooner we unload, the sooner we can move on." We worked our way through the remaining boxes, trying to avoid the ones that seemed off. But then we came to a box that looked normal enough. Same size, same plain brown cardboard. The problem was it wouldn't budge. I bent down, gripping it with both hands, and pulled with all my strength, but it was like it was bolted to the floor. "Hey, Mike, give me a hand with this one," I called over. Together, we managed to lift it, but barely. Whatever was inside was insanely heavy. The box creaked under the weight as we shuffled it across the truck bed and into the warehouse. By the time we set it down, my arms were shaking, and Mike was out of breath. "Dude, what the hell is in this thing? Bricks?" he said, leaning against a nearby shelf. I crouched down, inspecting the box. That's when I noticed the bottom seam was starting to split. Before I could finish, the bottom of the box tore open, and the contents spilled out onto the floor. At first, I couldn't process what I was seeing. It was just a pile of white objects. But as my eyes adjusted, I realized they weren't just random objects. They were bones, human bones. Mike let out a strangled yell and stumbled back. "What the are those?" "Yeah," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. My stomach churned as I stared at the macabre scene. There were skulls, ribs, femurs, some broken, others intact. They looked old but not ancient, like they hadn't been buried for long. The sound of the truck engine roaring to life snapped us both out of it. The driver was leaving. He'd thrown the truck into reverse and was backing out of the loading dock, the rear door still open. Bones and debris tumbled out onto the pavement as the truck sped away. "Hey, stop!" I shouted, running after the truck. Mike joined in, both of us yelling at the top of our lungs. But the driver didn't stop. He didn't even look back. The truck barreled out of the lot and disappeared down the road, leaving a trail of bones and green sludge in its wake. "We have to call someone. The cops, or I don't know, someone, he said, his voice shaking. I nodded, pulling out my phone with trembling hands. But as I dialed, a strange thought crossed my mind. Why had the driver brought those boxes here in the first place? This wasn't some random mistake. He knew what was in those boxes and he wanted them off his truck. When the police arrived, we showed them the pile of bones and the green sludge still seeping across the floor. They taped off the area and started asking questions, but there wasn't much we could tell them. The manifest didn't match the delivery, and the driver had disappeared. The security cameras in the lot were conveniently offline that morning, which only made the whole thing seem more deliberate. A few days later, a detective came by to follow up. He said the bones were still being analyzed, but preliminary results suggested they were human and relatively recent. He wouldn't say much more, only that the case was ongoing. The incident was all over the local news for a week or two, but eventually the story faded away. No one ever found the driver or the truck. The company claimed they had no record of hiring him, and his truck didn't match the description of any in their fleet. I still work at the department store, but things aren't the same. Every time a new truck pulls into the lot, I feel a pit in my stomach. I can't stop thinking about those bones, or the green sludge. Where did it come from? What was it? And why did he bring it to us? The police might not have answers, but I can't shake the feeling that whatever was in that truck wasn't meant for us. It was meant to disappear. And now, someone out there knows we saw it.